AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's new husband's kids after he said I was child-free and had too much free time? I told him, if you leave them with me, I'll call CPS. He didn't believe me. So I taught him a lesson he'll never forget. The moment he said those words, "You're child-free and have too much free time," something inside me clicked. Not snapped. Clicked. Like a lock sliding into place after being forced open one too many times. It wasn't just what he said. It was how he said it. Like being child-free made me some kind of community resource, his personal babysitter on call, because clearly I had nothing important going on. And the way my sister stood there, silently, half smiling like it was a reasonable request, that was the real punch in the gut. I'd spent years watching my family treat my time like it didn't matter. Because I didn't have kids. Because I didn't have to juggle diapers and tantrums and parent-teacher conferences, I must just be lounging around doing nothing, right? Wrong. I had a demanding job, a freelance side hustle, and, most importantly, boundaries. But apparently, boundaries didn't matter in my sister's new marriage. Her husband walked into the family like he owned it. Newly married, 2 kids from a previous relationship, and a massive chip on his shoulder. And from the beginning, he treated me like the help. Like I was just supposed to step in and carry the weight of his parenting the moment things got a little inconvenient. That day at brunch, when he smirked and said, "It must be nice to have so much free time. Maybe you can finally help out with the kids," I didn't laugh. I didn't argue. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "If you leave those kids with me, I will call CPS." He laughed like I was bluffing. But he didn't realize something I already knew. I never bluff when it comes to being disrespected. And when he tested me, I made sure he never would again. I didn't say another word to him after that comment. Just sat there, finished my coffee, and listened while he made another offhand joke about how people without kids don't know what real stress is. My sister giggled nervously, trying to smooth it over like she always did. But it didn't matter. Because in my head, something had shifted permanently. That line, child-free with too much free time, wasn't just condescending. It was a statement about how little he respected me. About how disposable he thought I was. And I'd spent too many years letting family walk over my time, my choices, my boundaries. This time, it was going to be different. The thing is, I'd never had a problem with kids. I actually like them. But what I don't like is being told I owe someone my energy just because I'm not drowning in diapers. And what I hate is being told I'm selfish because I chose a life that fits me. I didn't choose to be child-free because I'm lazy. I chose it because I know my limits. I know what I want. And I know that I'm not the kind of person who should be bullied into parenting someone else's kids just because I happen to have a weekend free. It wasn't long after that brunch that he decided to test me. My phone pinged on a Thursday afternoon mid-meeting with a text from my sister, "Hey, we're dropping the kids off at your place. Just for a few hours while we run errands. Be there soon." I stared at the message, stunned. No question. No request. Just a statement. As if I were a nanny waiting on standby. I called her immediately. She didn't pick up. I called again. Finally, she answered, laughing like everything was normal. "It's just a couple of hours," she said. "You're always home on Thursdays." "I work from home," I said flatly. "And I didn't agree to this." She paused. "Come on. It's not a big deal." I didn't argue. I just said one thing: if you leave those kids with me without my consent, I will call CPS. I'm not kidding. There was silence on the other end. "Are you serious?" she asked, her tone suddenly sharp. Dead serious. Her husband got on the phone, laughing. "You're not gonna call CPS on your own family. Don't be dramatic." I hung up. 10 minutes later, my doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there they were. 2 kids, backpacks slung over their shoulders, standing on my porch with no adult in sight. My blood boiled. I didn't let them in. I didn't even touch the door. I stepped outside, shut the door behind me, and dialed the local non-emergency police line. I explained the situation calmly, clearly, and with zero emotion. I told them 2 minor children had been abandoned at my doorstep without consent or notice, and I was not their guardian. Within 20 minutes, a patrol car arrived. The officers spoke gently to the kids, offered them juice boxes, and took them safely into temporary care. I gave a statement. I handed over the text messages. I showed them my doorbell camera footage. And then I went back inside and finished my work call like nothing happened. Because for the first time in years, I had done something that put my peace above someone else's entitlement. And I didn't feel guilty about it. Not even a little. The fallout didn't take long. My phone lit up barely an hour later. First my sister, then her husband, then both of them calling back to back like their house was on fire. I didn't answer. I just watched the notifications roll in while finishing a client proposal I actually got paid to do, unlike the free babysitting gig they tried to dump on me without permission. Then came the messages. My sister, asterisk, how could you do this to me? They were terrified. Asterisk. Him, asterisk, you've gone too far. This is beyond messed up. You're seriously evil. Asterisk. I didn't reply. I didn't owe them an explanation. I'd already given them one before they even dropped the kids off. They just didn't take it seriously. And now they were upset because, for once, there were consequences. It wasn't long before the rest of the family started chiming in. My mom called in a panic. Asterisk, what's going on? Your sister says you called the police on the kids. Asterisk, I calmly explained everything. How they dumped 2 minors at my door without consent. How I'd warned them beforehand. How I simply did what any reasonable adult would do when 2 children are left unattended. My mom was shocked silent. Then she sighed. Asterisk, I just wish you didn't make it such a big deal. Asterisk. That line. That's when I realized how deep the entitlement ran. It wasn't just my sister and her husband, it was generational. I was always the one expected to help out, the one with extra time, the one without real responsibilities. And the second I stood up for myself, I was the problem. Meanwhile, CPS had officially opened a file. Nothing too serious. They weren't trying to destroy anyone's life, but they did need to verify that the children were being properly cared for. The officer I spoke to thanked me for reporting it responsibly and noted this wasn't the first complaint involving my sister's husband. Apparently, someone else, a neighbor, had seen the kids unsupervised before. The next day, I got another call. This time from my sister's husband, screaming into the phone, asterisk, you've ruined my reputation. You have no idea what you've done. I could lose my job over this. Asterisk. I stayed calm. You ruined your own reputation, I said. All I did was refuse to be manipulated. He tried spinning it again. You didn't have to escalate things. Family doesn't do that to each other. No, I replied. Family doesn't abandon children on someone's doorstep like a package delivery and expect praise. Then I blocked his number. That weekend, they tried damage control. My sister showed up at my door, no kids, just her. Red-eyed, holding a coffee like we were about to have a heart-to-heart. I didn't let her inside. I just want to talk, she said. I crossed my arms. Talk is what should have happened before you tried to force your life on me. She tried the guilt route again. We're just so overwhelmed. I thought you'd understand. I do understand, I said. Which is why I said no. I didn't say never. I said, not like this. But you and your husband thought you could override my decision. She didn't know what to say. And for once, I wasn't going to fill the silence for her. She left, quietly, without another word. And I realized something important in that moment. Silence is what happens when people finally face a boundary they can't bulldoze. After that, the smear campaign began. Subtle at first, passive-aggressive Facebook posts from my sister like asterisk, some people care more about being right than being family. Asterisk then more direct jabs. Vague tweets from her husband complaining about fake aunts, and how the world is full of heartless people who call the cops instead of stepping up. It didn't bother me. I'd been the family doormat for too long. I used to drop everything when my sister called. I drove her to job interviews, watched her kids before this marriage, even covered 1 month of rent years ago when she was struggling. But now, when I refused to parent her new husband's kids on demand, I was suddenly cruel. Convenient. How fast love turns to blame when you stop being useful. The kicker came when I saw they'd started telling people I traumatized the children. That one did hit me. I took a long walk that day, sat with that phrase circling in my head. Did I really traumatize them? Was I heartless? I'd talked to the officers. The kids were calm. They were picked up with snacks in hand and told it was just a temporary visit. They were safe. They weren't traumatized. They were confused, sure, but that confusion was their parents' fault, not mine. Still, I needed clarity. So I reached out to a friend of mine, a licensed family therapist. Told her everything. Her response? You didn't traumatize the kids. You protected them. You enforced a boundary. The trauma would have been letting them believe it's okay to be dropped off without care, to have adults treat them like luggage. What you did. That's modeling safety. I exhaled for the first time in days. Meanwhile, the silence from my sister grew louder. No texts. No updates. Just cold distance. Then one night, I got a message from her ex-husband, the father of her biological child. He thanked me. Said he'd heard what happened, and it wasn't the first time she and her new husband had done something reckless with the kids. He was pursuing a custody modification and asked if I'd be willing to provide a statement. I didn't even hesitate. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about responsibility. They'd played house like parenting was a burden to hand off. They thought because I didn't have kids, I didn't know what it meant to care about them. But I did. I knew better than to use children as pawns or pressure someone into childcare under threat of family guilt. So I wrote the statement. Honestly. Calmly. Factually. A week later, my sister messaged me again. This time not angry, just tired. Asterisk. You hate me now, don't you? Asterisk, she wrote. I stared at the screen for a minute. Then I typed back. Asterisk. I don't hate you. I just finally love myself enough not to be treated like an unpaid lifeline. Asterisk. She didn't respond. And maybe for once, that silence meant she was actually listening. I didn't expect the ripple effect it would have, not just with my sister, but across the whole family. At first, there was outrage. My aunt called to say she couldn't believe I'd go to that extent over a misunderstanding. My cousin texted, "You could have just said no nicely." As if I hadn't. As if multiple ignored texts, a direct verbal warning, and a literal CPS threat were somehow subtle hints instead of clear boundaries. But slowly, something strange started happening. People began to get quieter. Not in anger, but in reflection. The cousins who had kids of their own started texting me privately. Asterisk, honestly, I'm glad you did what you did. Asterisk. Asterisk, I've had to put up with similar pressure from our family. You had the guts to do what I never could. Asterisk. Turns out I wasn't alone. I was just the first one to stop playing nice. And while my sister's husband stewed in his bruised ego, I was getting peace for the first time in years. No more random kid dumping, no more guilt trips about how my life was easy, no more being expected to rearrange everything to help people who wouldn't even ask politely. I had reclaimed my time, and more importantly, my worth. My mom, of course, stayed neutral. But even she changed. One day, she came over for coffee. Just her, no lectures. She sat on my couch and said, Asterisk, I didn't like what you did, but I understand why you did it. Asterisk, that was the closest to an apology I'd ever get. And it was enough. Even my sister began to unravel the facade. Weeks later, she texted, Asterisk, I've been thinking. I know I let him speak for both of us. And I didn't stand up for you when I should've. Asterisk. I didn't reply right away. I needed time. She'd gone along with the dismissal of my time, my choices, my boundaries, for years. Letting her husband mock me, use me, then punish me when I didn't comply. But I also knew something else. She was in a marriage where she was slowly losing herself. Where her voice didn't matter much more than mine did. She'd become someone who defaulted to silence to avoid conflict. And I could recognize that, because I used to be exactly the same. So I wrote back carefully. I forgive you. But forgiveness isn't the same as access. I need space. I need honesty. And I need you to respect that saying no isn't an attack, it's a boundary. She responded with one word. Understood. For once, I believed her. Because something in her tone had changed, less defensive, more human. Like maybe this whole mess had cracked something open in both of us. Maybe she was tired, too. Tired of pretending her marriage was healthy. Tired of watching people walk all over the ones who loved her. Tired of being the bridge between her husband's entitlement and her family's peace. The silence that followed wasn't icy this time. It was healing. And I realized, sometimes, silence isn't punishment. It's a pause between one version of a relationship and the chance to build a better one. It's been a few months now, and things are calm. Not perfect, but real. My sister hasn't tried to dump her problems on me since. Her husband avoids me entirely at family gatherings, and honestly, I prefer it that way. He still won't admit he was wrong, still acts like I committed some betrayal, but I don't need his validation. I never did. What matters is this. I drew a line, and for once, it held. The kids? They're fine. I checked in, not directly, but through a cousin who's close with them. They're in therapy now, which is good. They've got more structure at home. My sister finally realized that being overwhelmed doesn't mean you get to hand off your responsibility without warning. And I think, deep down, she knows I saved her from something worse. Because if CPS had gotten a report from someone else, a stranger, a teacher, a neighbor, it could have gone a lot differently. And me? I'm thriving. I travel more. I sleep better. I've stopped being afraid of confrontation. Saying no doesn't make my stomach twist the way it used to. I've learned that people who truly respect you won't punish you for setting boundaries. They'll honor you for them. I still get the occasional judgmental side eye at family dinners. Still hear the whispers. But I also hear the quiet respect from people who never had the courage to do what I did. I taught them all a lesson without yelling, without violence, without cruelty. I taught them that being child-free doesn't mean you're free for everyone's mess. That your time matters. That your peace matters. That being family doesn't give anyone the right to ignore your consent. And most of all, I taught them that when someone tells you who they are, you should believe them. But when someone tells you what they won't tolerate, you should believe that too. Because the moment you cross that line, you just might find out what it really means to be left out in the cold. And no one, not even family, is entitled to stand at your door and expect warmth after trying to burn you down.